So the first thing we're going to talk about are these 6 tabs up at the top. This is what we refer to as the quote workbook. So if you read any of the documentation or speak with one of us and we reference the quote workbook, this is what we're talking about are these 6 main tabs here. The document items tab is where you're going to spend a lot of your time in QuoteWerks. This is where your products and services are going to be listed as your customers or as you're building the quote for your customers. So as you start to select items from any of the databases that you're working with, or if you're importing products into this specific quote, the items are going to show up on this tab. Anything on this document items tab can be changed. So if you need to edit in items quantity, description, price, cost, part number, anything like that, you'll be able to make those adjustments here. This is also where we will be able to adjust or add such line items as like subtotals. We can group items together. You'll also be able to choose which items are hidden and things like that. And we'll go through all that information here in just a little bit. The Sold To, Shipped To tab is going to be your customer contact information. This is going to be pulled either directly from a CRM or PSA that we integrate with, or if you're using like Outlook or the QuoteWerks contact database, we can pull that information from there. You can also manually type in here, but obviously using one of those other options is a little better because then you don't have to type in the information, the customer's contact information, each time you are adding that particular contact to this document. We'll be able to search in a database for the contacts pull into QuoteWerks, and you can copy over to different ones. You can mix and match contacts. They don't necessarily need to be all the same. And again, we're going to go into a little more detail on that here in just a moment. The Sale Info tab is going to be your document-specific information. So this information is going to be where you set the tax rate. If you have any contract dates you want to set, that information is going to be set here. Customer PO number you can set, the terms, if there are any, the document date, and the expiration date. So all that information can be adjusted here, so you can actually go through and make any changes to this, the document dates or any of this information here before creating the document or even after you've worked on it. On the right-hand side, you see we have 2 user fields. We have a sales rep field and a prepared by field. These fields are used to determine who has basically ownership of the document. So the sales rep is who the document is actually assigned to. When you click on the drop-down, this will display a list of any users you have set up in QuoteWerks and that you have the authority to basically set as the sales rep. So this could be limited by your security settings if you're trying to assign the document to someone else. You may just not have the correct access rights in QuoteWerks. The prepared by field is exactly what it sounds like. This is who basically prepared the document. This is very useful if you have someone who's out of the office, on the road, or just maybe out on vacation, and one of their leads or customers calls in and they need a quote. Instead of having to, just tell them that they'll create it when they get back, you can actually create it on their behalf. Set them as the sales rep. You can leave yourself as prepared by, so you can still have access to the document to make any changes. And that way, when the person comes back into the office, they can actually do a search by that sales rep by their own name, and they'll be able to see any new documents that have been created. So it makes it easy to create documents on someone else's behalf, while they're not in the office. The Notes tab has 4 different notes fields. We have the introduction and closing on the left-hand side and the purchasing and internal on the right-hand side. The introduction and closing notes are typically notes you would want the customer to see. So this can be anything that's about us information, ordering instructions, boilerplate information, anything that you want the customer to view in kind of like a paragraph form on the document, you can include in these fields here on these introduction and closing notes. You are able to set defaults. You can see here there's an option for setting defaults. So there's a Set Defaults button. And this would let you select multiple different notes that you can use on a regular basis. You can create a pick list of the notes that you want to use. There's a lot of flexibility here. This is optional. You don't have to set anything here, but the option does exist. Very useful if your notes are going to be in more of a, just kind of small paragraphs, a couple sentences here. You wouldn't want to put, pages and pages of information here. So that we'll want to use like an attachment or something like that, but you do have that option here. The purchasing and internal notes are notes that are typically not going to be seen by the customer and by default will not be seen unless you have made a specific change in your installation. Very useful if you have multiple reps working on the same document. They can actually come in here and leave notes for each other about changes they've made, changes they want to make, anything like that. So that information can be adjusted here. Again, also useful if you're just working on the document for yourself and you just need to put a little note for yourself. You can use these fields and you don't have to worry about the customer ever seeing them. The custom tab is going to be used for any kind of custom information that you need in this document and you don't see a field for already. So for instance, we don't have an account number field in QuoteWerks. So if you have account numbers for your contacts, your companies that you're selling to, you can rename one of these fields. And to do that, all you simply do is hold Control on your keyboard and double-click on the label name, and this will let you change it. So I could change this to account name. And I'll make that adjustment here. And then once I hit OK, it'll actually update my custom tab with the change. And then you can see here my custom text 01 has changed to account name. So you can do that with any of the custom fields here. It's also the same process for changing any of the other field names on the notes, sale info, or sold to, ship to tabs. So if you want to repurpose or rename any of those other fields, if you're not using them for what we have them for, you hold down Control and double-click, and that'll rename them. That is a global or installation change. So if you make that change, it's going to change it for everyone. So you would have to be like a QuoteWerks admin or have master rights in order to make that change in the installation. The Links tab is useful if you have additional documentation that you want to include with your quote or proposal. So if you have a statement of work, a Visio or CAD drawing, an Excel spreadsheet, a PowerPoint presentation, Word document, PDF document, really anything that you want to attach to this specific document that you're working on in QuoteWerks, you can attach it here. You can either drag and drop a file, and it'll show up here, or you can click on the Add File Link button up at the top right, so this little blue button here with the little plus sign, and you can click on that, and that'll let you navigate either on your machine or on the network for any documents that you want to include with this particular document you've created in QuoteWerks. Anything you attach here will be displayed, and you don't have to worry about if it's something that's internal, because when we go to deliver this document to the customer, you'll have complete control over if it's included or maybe if it's an internal document. So if your customer sent you like an RFP or an RFQ and you just want to attach it to this specific document in QuoteWerks while you're creating their quote just to keep track of, while you're building it, you can do that easily by, when we get ready to deliver it, there'll be a little checkbox next to it, and I'll go over that here in just a few minutes as well, what that's going to look like when we send that to the customer. So now we'll go ahead and go over the toolbar shortcuts up at the top. Toolbar shortcuts are just going to be the most commonly used shortcuts from the menu options up at the very top. So if you look at the top of the screen, you'll see it says File, Edit View, Products, Tools, Contacts, Reports, Utilities, Window Help. Those are just the menu options, and then below it, the icons are going to be the most commonly used shortcuts from there. The New button is going to create a new blank document. It'll look exactly like this in QuoteWerks, so it won't have any line items in there. It won't have any contacts set. It'll only have any defaults that you set up under Tools Options. So this is how you start with a blank document. If you're loading from a template where you want to start with a template that you've previously created in QuoteWerks, that's going to be under the File menu, and then you'll select the New option under that menu. And when you select New, it'll open up a window, and there'll be two tabs. One will have a blank tab, which will show you that you can load a blank quote, a blank order, or a blank invoice, or you can click on the Template tab, and the Template tab will show you a list of all the templates that are available that you can load from. So if you are just creating a new blank document and you want to start from scratch, you can just click on the New icon. If you're going to start from a template, then you can click on the File, New, and then select that template from that option. The Open button, this is going to, you're going to use this option a lot more than likely because this is where the document management in QuoteWerks is going to take place. So this is where you're going to be able to search for any previously created documents. The first option you're going to have, you'll see there's a bunch of shortcuts on the left-hand side. So we have our search, our My Documents, all that information there. But the first one we're going to do is going to be search. So when you're looking for your documents, you're able to search by pretty much anything. You can search by the document name, the document number, the type of the document, is it a quote, order, invoice, the status, is it open, is it closed, was it lost, the company, the contact, the document date, the expiration date, the sales rep that created the document, or a specific item in the document. This is very useful for reps and management where you can quickly locate a document you're looking for. These fields work in conjunction with each other, so you can use it as a filter to basically build out specific documents. So for instance, as a rep, if you wanted to see all the quotes that are open and that are expiring this week, you can build out that filter, and then you can set it for your sales rep. And click Find, and it'll only show you any documents that are expiring this week that meet this filter. So you don't you don't have a list that has 15, 20 different documents in here. You can really narrow it down to the specific document that you're looking for. My Documents. This is going to show you a list of your documents. By default, it's going to start with the active quotes, which are basically any quotes that are still open that haven't expired or haven't been set to lost. And then you can obviously change the different filters here. So you can change the expiration, the document date, and the sales rep. But by default, it's just going to show you your active documents that are currently out there. You can also switch it to all quotes, orders, and invoices. So this would be any quotes that have been lost, closed, and as well as orders and invoices as well. Let's see, My Recent Documents. This will be very similar to My Documents, where this is going to just show you a list of your documents that you've worked on recently. By default, it's going to be looking at the last modified date, which is, again, the default set to today. But you can change that to yesterday or this week or this month or whatever range you want to set here. You'd be able to adjust that. If you have access rights to everyone else's documents, you can click on All Documents, and this shortcut will actually show you any documents for all users. So if you wanted to filter by, see how many quotes have been created today, you can quickly see how many were created. You do have to have security settings and user rights to access that portion. So that's why I initially skipped over it, because a lot of people won't have that. You're only going to be able to view your quotes. So if you click on All Documents and you only see your quotes, that means you don't have access rights to view others' documents. Same thing with All Recent Documents. This is going to show you any documents that have been modified today by any user. So if you do have admin rights, you would be able to view that. If you don't, you'll only be able to view your documents. This is also where you can view any templates that you've previously created. So if you need to make any adjustments to templates, you'll be able to do that here and actually view these templates and make any changes or update them if you need to. And you can simply do that by highlighting one of them and clicking Open, or you can even delete them from this screen as well. So the next icon is going to be the Save icon. Pretty straightforward. This is obviously where the document is saved in QuoteWorks. The Save, however, is going to trigger a few things if you're integrating with one of the CRM or PSAs that we have integrations with. So on the save, we're going to apply the document name. The document number will be assigned automatically as well. There'll also be a status assigned and a project number. If you are working with one of the CRMs or PSA, underneath that information will actually appear another box, an integration box, with check boxes with the different integration points for the CRM or PSA that you're using. Again, this is where you can essentially choose to build that opportunity, create the follow-up call. We'll create usually an attachment or something like that. So you can go to the website for more information about the integration points. But this is what's going to trigger that creation of that opportunity or that document in your CRM or PSA is when you save the document in QuoteWorks. So it's very important that you just remember that the save is going to essentially be the trigger to start that integration. The revision icon, this is how we handle revisions in QuoteWorks. So when you create a new document in QuoteWorks, and if you need to make an adjustment to it or something like that, so you send it out to your customer, they ask you to change the quantity or update the items, remove this service, add this item. Instead of having to do like a file copy or file save as to the original document, you can simply open the original, make the changes, click revision. It'll make a copy for you, and then it'll add a -01 to the end of the document number so that you know it's the first revision of that original document. Each time you click on revision, it'll count up. So the first one would be -01, then -02, and -03. You'll also have the option to delete the previous revision. So if you just want to work on the latest version of the document, you'll have that option where you can make those changes and just work on the latest one and just give that one to the customer. If you have multiple revisions for the same document and maybe the customer decides, oh, actually I want to go back to that second one that you created for me, you can, under the View menu, click on Document Revisions or Associated Documents. It'll actually get you pretty close to the same spot. But you can click on Document Revisions, and it'll show you any revisions that have been created for that specific document. So if you need to quickly track, one document, and you'll be able to see, you can see here there's actually an open button, so you'll be able to select the different revision that you want to open. You can highlight it, click open, and open it from the screen. Associated documents will just list the documents in a line instead of in the tree format with the most recent to least recent. So you can access it either way in QuoteWerks that way. The Deliver button, this is when you are actually ready to send the document to your customer. So when you're ready to deliver the document to your customer, you can click on the Deliver icon. The Deliver window is going to have quite a few different layouts. This is my demo installation, so I have quite a few more layouts than most companies would. But basically what this will show you, this is where you're going to choose the output that the customer is going to receive from you. So this is where you're going to select what the document is actually going to look like when the customer receives the PDF version of it. If you're sending a simple one-page quote or a multiple-page proposal, it doesn't really matter. Either way, you're going to start here on this Deliver window. You can select the different layout, and then you can go through the different tabs of adding a cover page, adding any literature, which can be like your terms and conditions, warranty, and things like that. And you'll basically build the document that you're going to deliver to the customer at this point. And we'll go into a lot more detail here in just a moment, but you're going to have a couple different ways that you're going to be able to send the document. You're going to be able to email them a PDF version of the document. You can save it as a PDF, and then, if you're going to physically hand it to them, if you're going to see them, or if you want to fax it to them, you'll have that option. We also have an add-on to QuoteWerks called QuoteValet, which you'll have the option to deliver it that way as well, which I'll get into a little more here in just a minute. The dashboard, this is going to display kind of like a quick snapshot of your documents in QuoteWerks. So it's going to show you any quotes that you've created this month and how many of those were converted to orders. Same thing for last month and 2 months ago. If you have the correct access rate set, you can actually view the dollar amount for the quotes that you created and how many were converted. This will also show you any recent documents that you've worked on. So if you've made modifications to a document or created a new document, those documents will be listed here, and you can see they are hyperlinked, so you can click on them to open them in QuoteWerks. The quotes expiring within 7 days, this is going to display any quotes that you have in the system that are expiring within the next week. So it makes it very easy to see any documents that you need to follow up on before they expire. Just kind of like a nice reminder. You'll see, again, it's hyperlinked, so you can click on it and open that document in QuoteWerks. QuoteValet, this icon will only appear if you have QuoteValet. So if you have the QuoteValet subscription, this will display here. QuoteValet dashboard is going to have 3 different tabs. The first one is going to be the inbox, which is going to show you kind of like what we call priority notifications. This will show you any notifications, like any time a user has viewed a quote, accepted a quote, changed an option, made payment, viewed the PDF, accepted it. Any of that information will be displayed here. Once you have looked over a document, you can dismiss the notification, so you can keep track of just the most current notifications in your document. We do send some email notifications via QuoteValet, so we'll send QuoteValet emails for the first view, the acceptance, and payment, as well as if the customer posts a comment. But the notifications here in this inbox are just kind of like a secondary notification, so that if you see the customer can view that, oh, they viewed the PDF, or they changed an option, or they viewed it for the 3rd time. You don't need an email notification for each of that, but you can always go into this inbox and check to see if your customers have done anything with the document recently. The reporting tab will give you some basic reporting on your documents, kind of very similar to the open window in QuoteWerks, where it'll show you kind of what the customer is doing with it, how many times they viewed it, if it's expiring, that kind of information, so you can quickly see which documents you want to follow up on. And then the payments tab will include any payments that have been submitted today, or you can set a range for that as well, and you can see which quotes have closed, which ones have payments, which ones still need to be processed. Your products icon, this is where your products and services will be stored in QuoteWerks. So depending on if you are importing products into QuoteWerks or linking to databases or using Edelweiss, you'll be able to go to one spot to look for all of your items in QuoteWerks. You'll have the option of mix and matching, so if you do want to import a database for one vendor, but for another vendor you just want to link to a database, you'll be able to do that. If you're using the IT distributors like Tech Data, Ingram, Synex, or D&H, you can go to this products window, and we'll be able to search in real time for items from there as well. And I'll show how that works here in just a moment also. Bundles are groups or kits of items. So if you sell items together in like a package deal, you can create a bundle or group for those items so you don't have to individually select those items each time. Something that can save you a lot of time when adding those items to the document. So if you have something, these 3 or 4 items that you sell on a regular basis, instead of having to individually select them each time you want to sell that package, create a bundle for those items. You just simply select that bundle, and it adds those items to the document for you. The configurator is basically a step-by-step process of building a bundle and adding it to the document. So it's a flow chart that you create on your side, and it basically walks you through step-by-step adding the items to the document or adding the items to the bundle that are going to be added to the document. The configurator is very useful if you have particular packages or bundles that you sell that have a lot of accessories and options, and you need to choose which ones go with it before adding it to the document. You can build a configuration for that, and you don't have to worry about forgetting to include anything from that particular bundle. Best, latest, and compare. This is to refresh pricing on any existing document. So if you created a quote for your customer maybe 6 months ago, and they come back to you and they say, okay, we're ready to move forward, you can use the best, latest, and compare to refresh pricing. The best button is going to source it from the best cost vendor. So if you have 3 or 4 vendors that sell the same item, and you source it from vendor A, and now vendor B has better pricing 6 months later, when you click best, it'll automatically source it from vendor B instead of vendor A. It won't tell you. It's just going to do it automatically. So it is something you want to be aware of when you do that. You probably won't use best too much. Most companies are going to stick with latest and compare. Latest is just going to give you the latest pricing from that selected vendor. So if you have multiple vendors on the document, you click latest, it's not going to look at any of the other vendors that maybe sell that particular item. It's only going to look at the one you have selected. So if you have vendor A and you click latest, it won't look at vendor B or vendor C's items. It's only going to look at vendor A and give you the latest cost from vendor A if the pricing has changed. And then compare will let you compare in like a grid format among the vendors, so you can actually see which ones have the best cost. If you do have real-time capabilities with the IT distributors, you can actually see which ones have the best cost with stock, and that information will be available in real time as well. Contacts button. This is actually the same window that will open if you click on the Sold to, Ship to tab and then click on the magnifying glass here. That will actually bring up the same search for contacts window. So again, this is where you're going to search for contacts when you're adding them to QuoteWerks, either from if you're pulling them from your CRM or PSA or the QuoteWerks database. The contact icon here, this will pull in the current open contact in your CRM or PSA. It's only available in some of them, so depending on which one you're using, if you're using like an Act or Goldmine or something like that, we're able to pull the contact that you have currently open in the CRM. If not, you'll just have to select the contact from the search list. Purchasing, when you are ready to actually place the order with the distributors, such as Tech Data, Ingram, Synex, and D&H, we can do online ordering through QuoteWerks. We also added some purchase order functionality, so if you just need to create a purchase order in like QuickBooks or Sage 50, you can go to this purchasing icon and submit the PO there. There's also some other functionality as well as like marking items as received and adding serial numbers and things like that that can be set as well. The last one, the QuickBooks icon. If you are using QuickBooks as your accounting program, we can send any document you create in QuoteWorks over to QuickBooks as an estimate, sales order, or invoice by using this integration here. If you're using Sage 50, there'll actually be a button that says Peachtree. That'll show up instead, and it does the exact same thing where it'll send it over as a sales order or invoice. If you want to send over the documents to QuickBooks or Sage 50 as a purchase order, you'll just need to click on the purchasing icon instead. So we'll go ahead and we'll start a new document in QuoteWorks. So typically when you start your new document, you want to start on the Sold to, Ship to tab. This is important because we need to select the contact that this document is going to be sent to. So we're going to click on our magnifying glass, and this is going to bring up our lookup contact window. And I'm using the QuoteWorks database for my contacts. So I'm going to be able to search by company, last name, phone, email, or account number. And then I can set, if it's equal to, begins with, contains, however I want to do that, and then put in my search criteria. You can see here I only have one contact, so it's going to be very easy for the contact I'm going to select into my document. But if you're using one of the other CRM or PSAs, the window will look fairly similar, but it might have different fields that you can search by. Down here at the bottom, you'll see there's going to be the Sold to, Ship to, Bill to, and All fields. These 3 buttons correlate with your 3 fields here, so your Sold to, your Ship to, and your Bill to, and All will populate all 3 fields with the same contact. You can mix and match, so if you're selling to one location, shipping to a different, billing to a different, or even if they're different companies and not the same, under the same parent company, you can mix and match. That's fine. All these fields are interchangeable. You can use whichever ones you need. However, the sold to is going to be the important one. This is the one you want to make sure you fill out. This is the email address we're going to use for the document. This is the contact information we're going to use for the document. If you are using a CRM or PSA, this is who we're going to create the opportunity for. So you always want to make sure you fill out the sold to. The ship to and the bill to are essentially just additional fields. If you need them, they're there and you can use them. If not, you can actually leave them blank. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit all, and we're going to populate all three fields here. Now, when you select a contact, if you've created a quote for that particular contact and that quote is still open or available, you'll actually see here this active quotes panel will open on the right-hand side, and this will show you any documents that you've previously created. So this is very useful if maybe you were out and you get an email from you're checking your emails and you have an email from a customer asking for a quote. You pull that contact in here. If a quote shows up here, you might see, oh, it was created last week, so someone did that for me. And you can even right-click to open the document in QuoteWerks. So you can see you'll have the option to open it or to convert to lost. So if you have something that, if you can convert the document to lost, you'll be able to do that as well. So you can simply close the active quotes panel by clicking on the little X up at the top, and that way, if you just want to close out of there, you do have that option. So now that we've selected our contact, we're going to go ahead and move over to our Document Items tab. So we're going to click on our Document Items tab. And this is when we can start adding items to our documents. So like I said, the first step you always want to do is select the sold to, the contact on the sold to, ship to tab. And then once you've done that, now you can start building your document in QuoteWerks. In QuoteWerks, we have the ability to organize our document into different sections using what we call heading lines. So on my Document Items tab here, if I right-click, this will bring up my Edit menu. It's actually the same menu as if you click on the Edit menu up at the top of the QuoteWerks software. So if you go up at the top where it says File, Edit, you'll see there's an Edit menu, same menu here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my option for my heading line to pull this into my quote. Again, this is optional. You don't have to organize your document this way, but this makes it very easy to kind of break out the document into different sections, not only for the user, but also for the sales rep when they start adding items. Your heading lines can be whatever you want. You can do products, services, hardware, software, location 1, location 2, room 1, room 2. However you want to organize your document, you're able to do that. If you're going to use heading lines or you have a lot of heading lines that you plan on using, you can create templates that already have these heading lines preset, and then you don't have to worry about putting in the individual heading lines each time. So if you remember, beginning of this, if you go back under that File, New, and then there's that Templates tab, you can load any templates that you've created there. So if you've created multiple templates for that have specific heading lines, it's easy to do. Or you can skip this step completely. It's going to be up to you. So we're going to go ahead and we're just going to add a couple. So the first one we're going to do is just kind of a basic one. We'll get pretty generic. We're going to say products and hit enter once we put in our product heading line, and then that'll show up on our document. And then we'll right click again and bring up our edit menu and scroll down to insert heading. And then once I've selected my heading that I want to use, I'm going to go ahead and type in services this time. So when it prompts me to insert a new heading line, we'll type in services. And again, I'll just hit OK, and then that'll add it to my document. And then I'm going to insert one more heading, and we'll just do optional items for this one. So again, this is purely optional. You don't have to organize your document this way. You can skip this step, but it does make it easy to kind of break it out for the customer and also for the reps once we start adding items to the document. So once you have your heading lines on the document, if you wanted to create this document as a template, so if you're saying, hey, this is one that I'm going to use on a regular basis, you can save it as a template under File, Save as Template, and that's how you can save any template in QuoteWerks. Under that File menu, you choose Save as Template, And then you can see here, it'll bring up the Save as Document template window, and you can give it a name so you can save that template document. You probably won't want to do that when you're creating a brand new quote because you've already selected a contact, so you want to go and make sure that you were just creating this template first. So just start with a blank document first. So once you had your heading lines, we're ready to start adding items to our document. So we can click on our products icon up at the top in our toolbar, or you can get to the same window by clicking on the products lookup menu option. So if you look at the top, there's also products lookup. This will bring you to the same window in QuoteWerks. So either one, obviously the icons are going to be, the shortcuts is a little faster just to get there that way. So once you've brought up the product lookup window, on the left-hand side you're going to see a list of all the databases that you have available. So all these databases that you view are going to let you search for items and services and pull them into QuoteWerks. The first one I'm going to show you is Utilize. This is going to be specifically for any IT companies that are working with Tech Data, Ingram, Synex, D&H, or Westcon Group, which is also known as Comstore. So in the search for field on the right-hand side, this is sort of like a Google search. So this is going to let you search by pretty much anything. You can search by the manufacturer part number. You can search by the vendor part number, the product description, the keyword. However you want to look for an item, you can do that. You can also use multiple words. So if you want to use multiple keywords, if you're looking for a specific size laptop or screen or something like that, you can put that in there. So if you're looking for, a 20-inch laptop, you can type in 20-inch Lenovo laptop. So the more information you put in the search for field, the better. If you have the part number, that's the best because then they'll come back with an exact match. If you sell a lot of the same items on a regular basis, or if you sell at least some of the items on a regular basis where you're putting in the part number each time, instead of having to enter that information in manually each time, you can create a pick list in QuoteWerks. You do that by double-clicking in the search for field. And this will bring up the options to create a pick list of your different parts here. So you can see I've already created some of the items on there, and then I can add a new one by clicking on the new button. And then it'll ask you to enter in the value. The value is just going to be typically the part number. And then you would type // and then the description. And the reason you do the / is to kind of break it up so you know what this item is. So you have the part number of the item and then the description so you know what you're actually selling. So when you add that to your document, you can see you'll have a part number that looks something like that. And that has the / and then you know that, okay, this is a trip light switch. So that's the item I want to select first. So I'm going to hit select. And then you can see there it's going to populate my search for field with that part number. So now I can locate just this particular item. So instead of just typing in trip light switch, I have the part number in there. And then you can either hit enter on your keyboard or click on find, and it'll go return that particular result for you. So once it does its search, it'll show you a list of the items underneath your search, and you can select which item you want to get more information about. So I'm going to highlight my item here. And then you can see it populates at the bottom the product picture and description of the item. So that information is actually being pulled from Utilize. So I don't have any pricing yet. The little lightning bolt, this is where I can get real-time pricing for my distributors. So this is going to use your account credentials. So this is if you are using, again, Tech Data, Ingram Micro, Synex, D&H, or Westcon / Comstore. You can get real-time pricing from those vendors as well as availability. So clicking on this icon. This goes out using your credentials, so this would be the same pricing as if you logged into their website and got pricing. It's going to show you the exact same information. So you'll see here it's going to go out to the different distributors and give us pricing from D&H, Synex, Ingram, and Tech Data. In parentheses, it'll also show you availability. So if you want to see what the particular item is selling for on that from that distributor or how many they have in stock, you'll see the availability is here. And when you select that vendor, it'll actually break it down by warehouse on the right-hand side. Utilize will also automatically highlight in green your best cost. So you can see here that on this particular option, Tech Data has the best cost. It also has the most in stock as well. So you can see by vendor on the right-hand side the stock available per warehouse. From the screen, we can also check list or retail pricing. So if you sold this particular item and you want to check what the kind of like retail pricing is before you add it to your document, you can click on the globe icon here, and this will check CDW, Newegg, Amazon, Dell, ProVantage, and Staples for this item to see if one, they carry it, and if the pricing is maybe better than the distributors, or kind of where you should probably price this particular item. So once it's located those online merchants items, then you can click on the just scroll bar to the right to scroll down, and you can see what the pricing is for CDW, Newegg, ProVantage, and Amazon on this one. Obviously, Dell's not going to sell those items, so they're not going to show up here. Same thing with Staples. So if you see an online merchant that doesn't appear here, that just means they don't carry this particular item. You'll also see there is a website link to the right. So if you click on the website link, this will actually bring you to that company's website, so you can make sure that is the item that you want to quote from, or just even order it from there. So if I click on that website link, you'll see here, it'll actually open up a web browser for us and load that particular screen for us. Just give it a second to load here. So if I click on the CDW website, this will bring us right to the CDW page, so you can actually see that particular item in CDW. If you wanted to order it from CDW, then you would have the option of logging into your account on the top left. See, there's an option to log on, so you can log in and order it from CDW here if you wanted to. But typically, you're going to use this just kind of give you a good idea of where you're going to price this particular item, because if your customer is going to price shop you, they're probably going to go to one of these specific merchants to get pricing from there. So Tech Data has the best costs, so we're going to go ahead and source it from Tech Data. To source from a particular vendor, simply double-click on the vendor, or if you select the vendor and then click Select Add in the bottom right-hand corner, that will give you the same option. It's going to bring up the Add Item Assistant either way. So we're going to click on Select Add. So the Add Item Assistant is what's going to allow you to make some adjustments to this particular item before adding it to your document. So you're going to be able to adjust the item's quantity, and you can use the up and down arrows to adjust the quantity here. You can also just type in the quantity. So if you don't want to use the up and down arrow and you just want to type in the quantity, you want to sell 2 of them, you can type in 2 or 5 or 50 or whatever you want to type in there. Next to the quantity is going to be the price modifier. The price modifier is where you set essentially the selling price of this particular item. I have a default modifier of 10% profit. So basically saying any items I sell, I need to receive at least a 10% margin on. You can set yours to whatever you want as a default. You can leave it blank. You can also type in the price. So if you say, I just want to sell this for $850, you can type in $850. If you wanted to do a markup, maybe you do more of a markup from cost, where you say, okay, we mark everything up 15% from cost. You can do M15. If you're doing, again, the margin, which is points, you can do P15. That would be a 15% margin. If you forget our shortcuts, that's fine. Just click on the ellipsis button here, and this will let you select the markup percentage. So you don't have to remember our shortcut of putting the M first. Or if you're doing the margin points, and you want to do 15% margin, you can do P15, or you can select the ellipsis button again and select the margin percent to set. And then once you set your margin there, you can hit OK, and we will update the margin of that particular item for you. So you can see there, that one's going to be P15. It updates and the price changes as well. From the screen, you can also check price history. So if you sold this particular part number that's listed here to this specific customer that you have selected on your Sold to, Ship to tab, you can check the price history by clicking on the price history for customer, and in this case it's Aspire Technologies, which is our company. So if I click on this icon, this will actually show me every time I've sold it to this particular customer. So I can see my customer price, the quantity, the date, the cost, the modifier, the document it was in, the document number. All that information is available, so it makes it very easy to stay consistent with your pricing. So from the screen, you can actually say, okay, last week I sold it to them at this price, or I used this modifier. I want to give them the same price. You can do that. So like I said, it makes it just very easy to quickly see what you sold it to them for and what the pricing should be on this time around. Right below that is the price history for this item. So see right underneath the price history for customer, there's a price history for this item. This would be everyone that you've sold it to, not just this specific customer. So if I click on that, this will show me every time I've quoted this particular item. It'll show me what the customer's price was, the quantity, the modifier I used, the cost, the dates, all that information. So if you gave someone a good deal last week or this week and you can't remember what the pricing was that you use, or if maybe you're switching over different pricing models and you want to make sure you're consistent with all your documents, you can see what modifier, what your cost was, all that information so that you can stay consistent. Now we're ready to add this particular item to our document. So you'll see here at the bottom of our Add Item Assistant, there's an option to add a heading. So if you click on the drop-down, because we added a couple heading lines to our document, they show up on our drop-down. So we have our products, our services, and our optional items. So I'm going to go ahead and select products for this one. So I simply highlight products. And then you have the option to add, insert, or cancel. Add is going to put the item basically from top down. So if you're working from multiple items and you want to go top down in the document, from the top of the document to the bottom, you'll use add. If you're looking to put the item in a specific spot in the document or at the top, then you'll use insert. But typically, you're always going to use add. And then cancel will obviously cancel the, this particular selection. So we'll go ahead and we'll hit add. And then if you look over on my document item screen over to the left a little bit, you'll see that the product has been added under that product heading here. So going back to Utilize, you'll see at the bottom of this particular item, there's 3 tabs. There's the Utilize Sourcing, which was the main tab we were just on, and then there's an Accessories tab. A lot of items in Utilize come with options or accessories. This allows you to basically upsell your customer or just provide some additional options that the customer may need. Typically, if it has more than one category, it'll actually be broken down into categories here, and you can see that by clicking on the drop-down. So you can actually see this one's broken down into 4 categories, so power cords, proximity sensors, services, and temperature and humidity sensors. So for this particular item, maybe I know that it doesn't come with a power cord, so I need to include one. I can select my category option, so I select power cords. And it's going to give me a list of the items available with that particular item, or accessories for that particular category. And then you'll see here it's going to look very similar to the last tab we were just on, where once I've selected my cable, I can then go to the right of the picture, and you'll see there's a real-time button, the little lightning bolt. Click on that. That'll actually go out to those distributors and give me my pricing again. And then this time, a different distributor has better pricing, and it has it in stock. So I'm going to go ahead and source it from Synex here. And again, you can either double-click on the vendor to bring up that Add Item Assistant, or you can click on the Add button, and that'll add it to the document. So I'm going to go ahead and double-click here to bring up the Add Item Assistant, because I want to match the quantity before I add it to my document. And then I'm just going to type in 2 on my keyboard. That'll update the quantity. I'm going to leave my price modifier the same. I'm going to go ahead and use the default that's set in my installation. And then I'm going to click on my drop-downs again under my headings. And I'm going to select products. And then once I have products selected, I can click on add to add this item to my document. So I'm going to click add, and then that'll add it to my document. And then if you look back on the document item screen to my left, you'll see that item has been added under my products section. Utilize will also provide you with spec sheet information. So a lot of times items will have more technical information. So if you click on that spec sheet tab, that information will be here. If you want to include this with your quote or your proposal that you're creating in QuoteWerks, you can click on the Add to Links tab all the way to the right. And this will save it as a PDF document in the QuoteWerks installation. So it's actually attach it to your QuoteWerks document as a PDF. So if I click Add to Links tab, you can see here it'll pop up a confirmation window just saying, hey, this PDF was added to the Links tab for this particular part. So you can hit OK. So that's how you can use Utilize. If you're not using Utilize, if you're using a database that you're linking to or importing into QuoteWerks, you're going to have a database that looks similar to this. So I'll show you my demo database here. So when you have a database that you import into QuoteWerks, you're going to have a lot of searching options. You're actually going to be able to search by the manufacturer, vendor part number, description of the item, manufacturer part number, and also keyword. If you want to view all the items in this particular database, if you look to the right, you'll see there's the option for Find, Reset, Show All, and More. I can click Show All, and this will actually show any items in this particular database. So I don't have any filters set. You click Show All, it's just going to give you a list of all the items in your document. So this is a very small database. It only has 5 items in there. And you'll see at the bottom left, it does show you the count of the items in that particular database if you hit Show All. So this one's, like I said, very small. It's just going to have the 5 items here. So when you have items in the database, it'll let you select multiple items at once, so you can actually go through. If you hold Control on your keyboard, you can select multiple items to add to your document. And then the rest of this is going to be very similar to where we were selecting items from Eatalize before, where you can click on the Select Add in the bottom right-hand corner, and this will let you add these items to this particular document. And again, it's going to prompt you with this Add Item Assistant, so you can set your quantity and your pricing and everything there. So we'll go ahead and we'll adjust our quantity here, and we'll adjust our price modifier. And then we're going to add this item under optional items. So on my drop-down on my heading, instead of selecting products or services, I'm going to go ahead and select optional items. And then I'm going to click Add. And then once I click Add, it'll add it under my optional items heading on my left-hand side. So you'll see there, it's added under the left-hand side of my Document Items tab. Once you've added one item to your document, if you had multiple selected, the next item will automatically show up behind it. So this one is going to be a warranty. So I'm going to go ahead and mark this up 15%. And then I'm going to select this one. I'm going to choose services for this one since it's a warranty. So from my drop-down, I'm going to select services. And then once I've selected my heading, I can then click Add and add it to my document here. And then this final item, again, it's going to be a service, so I'm going to go ahead and select it under Services again. And then click Add. So once you kind of get the hang of it, you can see it goes pretty quickly with being able to locate items and adding them to our document. Again, if you have multiple databases like I do, you can go between the different databases and select the items that you need very quickly without having to do too much. And you can see you can have different databases set up. I have quite a few different ones. So if you want to set up a database for just services to do recurring things like that, we can easily do that as well. So once you've selected your items and you're ready to make any adjustments to this particular document, we can close out of our product lookup window. So we're going to close out of this window by clicking on the Close button at the bottom right. And this will bring us back to the document items screen. So once I'm on the screen, now I can make any adjustments that I need to. If I didn't add a quantity or if I didn't set the price or anything like that, you can do that here. So if you added a bunch of items to your document and you didn't set the quantities or pricing or things like that, that's fine. We can do changes here. So for instance, if I wanted to set all my quantities to 2 maybe, you can go through individually and obviously highlight the quantity and then put in the new quantity for that particular item. Or if you right-click again and select the option that says Select All. So if I want to change all my quantities to 3, maybe I just want to do all of them at once, I can do right-click and choose Select All. And this will highlight all the items on my document. You can also do Control-A on your keyboard. That will do the exact same thing. And then I'm going to right-click again, and I'm going to select all the way at the bottom. There's an option for Apply Quantity. So on my Edit menu, when I right-click, you can see there's an Apply Quantity. So this will let you apply quantity to multiple items at a time. So like I said, if you have 500 line items on a quote and you want to change 100 of them to a different quantity, you can set that quantity at one time by highlighting the items you want and then doing Apply Quantity. And then you can set the quantity here. You can see it'll be basically a confirmation window that pops up. It says, okay, I want to set my quantity. So I'm going to set everything to, actually, let's do 3. So if I set 3 and then I hit OK, it'll update all my quantities to 3. So again, to apply the quantity, just right-click. It'll get you to that Edit menu, and then near the bottom there's an Apply Quantity option. Every item in QuoteWorks can be individually changed. So for instance, if you need to adjust an item's description, we can do that. If you double-click in this description field, it'll bring up the Zoom window. Zoom window will show you the entire item's description. So if you have a very lengthy description for a particular product or service, you can double-click on that description field and see the Zoom window so you can actually see the item's entire description. Each description field in QuoteWorks holds 32,000 characters, which is about 30 pages of text. So if you have very lengthy product or service descriptions, that's fine. You can easily put them into QuoteWorks. So each item could actually be 30 pages long technically if you want it to be. So you don't have to worry about running out of space with your descriptions. Typically what you see on the Document Items tab where we have the different column sizes, those can be customized as well, but we usually try to keep it a little more manageable so you just kind of see the first few words of it so you know what it is. From here, you can adjust cost or price as well. So if you need to adjust an item's cost, you can do that. You can adjust an item's price. If you just want to type in an item's price, you can do that just by clicking in the unit price field. And then I can just type in the price. So if I just wanted to sell this for $900, I can type in $900. And then once you've made that change, you simply need to click out of it. So I can either click Enter or I can just click somewhere else on my document item screen, and then it'll be set to $900. And that goes the same with any of the other fields on the document that you can select, or you can type in the price for any of the items on the document that you want to change. So if you want to round it up manually, you're able to do that. From here, we can also adjust price modifiers. So if you're looking at your items, up at the top, you'll see there's a Totals for All Items box. So right underneath that Document Items tab, it says Totals for All Items, so right here. And then you'll see there's a couple options. There's one that says Extended Cost, Extended Price, Extended List, Profit, Profit Margin, and Commission if you've set that up. So if you highlight an item, it'll show you that particular item's information, so that item's cost, price, list, profit, and profit margin. If you highlight multiple items, it'll show you that. If you don't highlight any items, it'll give it for the entire document. So if we go to our products and I highlight my 2 product items, and I just clicked on the first one, and then I'm going to hold Control on my keyboard to select the second item. And then you can see now it changes the title of this this to Totals for Selected Items. Then it'll also show us the extended cost, the extended price, the extended list, profit, profit margin for just those 2 items. So if I'm looking at this saying, you know, my products that I sell, I really need at least a 20% margin, I can adjust these items. Very similar in the way that I change the quantity by highlighting them, right-clicking, and then scrolling down again, and it's actually going to be right above Apply Quantity, and we're going to select Apply Price Modifier. So this will actually let me select the price modifier for those particular items. And then you can see here, it's going to set up I can set the markup percentage, the margin, the discount. So if you want to do a discount from list, you can do that. If you don't want to do a markup, you can do that, and you can also sell it at list as well. So for ours, we're saying, you know, we need a 20% margin on our products, so we're going to change that 10 to 20. And then once you type in 20 in that box, you can simply hit OK. And when you hit OK, this will update our price modifiers of our 2 items. So you can actually see here, it updated our 2 items with the P20, so we know that it's a 20% profit or 20% margin. And then if I highlight my 2 items, that Totals for Selected Items box will now change, and you can see it'll show us our new profit and our new profit margin. So now we're at $572.88, and then we're at a 20% profit margin. So that's where we want to be. So you can do that with multiple items. You can do that with the entire document. If you wanted to mark up the entire document 20%, or if you wanted to change just services to 50%, or whatever you want to set it as, you can easily make those adjustments. So in QuoteWorks, every item has what we refer to line attributes. Line attributes are how we define what type of product or service this particular item is in QuoteWorks. So if I highlight an item and I right-click and bring up that edit menu again, you'll see there's an option for edit line attributes. So if I click on this, this is going to give me basically the attributes for this particular item. You can change multiple items attributes at once if you'd like. So if you want to set items with the same attributes all at once, or you're just going to do pick and choose a couple of them, you can hold Control and select those items and do that all at once. So I'm going to go ahead and select Edit Line Attributes, and this brings up my Line Attributes window. And then you'll see there's a few different options on this window. So the first one is going to be is optional. So this is going to show you, or this is where you can say, okay, is this item optional? If you set an item as optional, it'll show up on the quote for the customer, but it won't be included in the quote total unless you check the box for is selected. So if you want this to show up on the document, but you don't want to include in the total, so if you want the customer to be able to see, okay, this is the particular item that you could also include with this quote, you can set it as optional for the customer. So we'll set it as optional, change the drop down to yes, and then once you change the drop down to yes, again, you'll have to decide whether or not you want this particular item to be included in that document total. So for instance, I want to go ahead and include this item in this document total, so I'm going to check that box for is selected. And that, again, that's just saying it is selected, it is included in that total. So the next fields we have are going to be the tax code. This is where you can change if it's taxable or non-taxable, you can adjust that. Hide price, this is where you can choose whether or not you want the price to show up on the document for the customer. Very useful if you're selling items and like a group or package, like the bundle that we talked about earlier, that if you are bundling items together, you could change the price to not show. So instead of saying high price no, you do high price yes, and then the customer wouldn't see the individual prices of the items. So if you're grouping them together and selling that as a package, you can say, here's your package one, and here's all the items that come with it, but you don't show the individual prices so the customer doesn't go out and try to price shop you and see how much you're charging them for, like a power cord or something like that. Hide quantity, very useful if you do not want to show the services quantities or just quantities in general for an item. A lot of companies use it for labor, where they don't want to show the how many hours of labor a particular item is going to be or costs or anything like that. You just want to say, hey, there's a labor charge associated with this item. You can hide the quantity, so the item will still show up on the document. They'll still see the price and how much it is. They just won't see the quantity of that particular item. Exclude line, this is probably something you won't use too much, but this is useful if you have an item on the document that you're using for like a reference point. So if you're adding something, maybe you're stealing another item's description or part number or something like that, or you're using like another item for pricing, you can exclude that item from the document and it won't show up on the document and it won't be included in the quote total. Again, useful if you're using something else for reference that you need that. It's just for internal use. The customer doesn't need to see it. It's not going to be included in the total. You can exclude the line. If you're using any CRM or PSA and you exclude a line, it will not write into the opportunity. It's like the line item's not there. It's strictly for internal view only. That's the only reason it's on there. Print line, if you want your item to show up on the document for the customer. So maybe you have something that you don't want the customer to see. You are selling these items as a package deal, and you don't want the customer to know the individualized pieces of that package. You can choose not to print the line. They're still included in the document total, so all the math will work out correctly. The customer just won't see it. It just won't show up on the document for the customer, so you can fully control what the customer is actually going to be able to view from you. Print picture, if you're pulling items from Eatalize or if you've manually associated a picture with a particular item, you can choose whether or not you want that picture to be set or to show up on the document for the customer. You do have to have specific layout settings in your QuoteWerks layouts to show pictures. So if you're having trouble with that, then you can contact us. We can show you how to change that. But if you don't want pictures to print, that you have pictures, you can adjust that setting here, or vice versa. If you have pictures that you want set, you can adjust that setting. And then the last one is going to be recurring. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK here, and then we're going to go to our services for recurring. So if you have a recurring item on your document, so again, I'm just going to right-click on that particular item, and then click Edit Line Attributes. Actually, let's do them both. Let's do Edit Line Attributes. You can set the recurring amount by basically saying, OK, the first thing, is it recurring, yes or no? So if it's recurring, you set it as yes. And then you're going to have a couple options. So the first one's going to be the billing cycle. So the billing cycle is going to be 4 different options. You can bill weekly, monthly, quarterly, or annually. So you'll have those options here. So we're going to select monthly. And since I have 2 items selected, it's going to apply these settings to both items. So this line attribute, since I have 2 items highlighted, it's going to apply these line attributes to both items here. I can then select my cycle basis. So cycle basis is basically what is the billing cycle. Is it the start of the cycle, which would be the beginning of the week, beginning of the month, beginning of the quarter, beginning of the year, depending on your which cycle you selected above, or is it a specific date? So are you saying, okay, well, it's going to start on a specific date that we're going to put in the document itself, or we're going to set here. Then the next option will be, do you want to include this first payment in the document total? So if you want to include the first payment in this total down here, then you just check this box. Maybe they get the first week or the first month free. Then you just leave it unchecked. And then you have the option for the contract dates. Do you want to use the contract dates from the document, which are specified on the Sale Info tab? So if you go to the Sale Info tab and you had already set your dates there, then it can use those dates. If you want to specify different dates than what's on the Sale Info tab, you simply click on Specify Dates. And then you can set the start date and end date. If you look to the right, you'll see there's a little ellipsis button here. So you can click on that, and that'll actually bring up a little calendar. So it'll default to today. So you can choose, I want it to start today, and then you can see it populates with today's date. And then I can select my end date again, and it's going to do very similar. So we're doing monthly, so maybe we're saying this is good for a year. So we'll click on the year button, and then you can see here it changes to March 2015, and I can make my selection. So that's good for a year. So once I have my start date and my end date, I can then go ahead and hit OK and add it to our document. So we're just going to update those 2 particular items to our document as recurring. Now, if you look at the bottom, it'll automatically show recurring monthly. So I set 2 items to monthly, but if I'd set as one is weekly or one is annual, anything like that, it'll actually break it out for you based on whichever selections you make. So if it's weekly, monthly, quarterly, or annual, you'll actually be able to see the recurring amounts here at the bottom of the document. The other thing I want to show you is if you are sending items out as exclusive items, so if you're saying, you know, your customer can choose one of these options, this is where you can do that in QuoteWorks. When you select as optional, so when you select your 2 items and you set as optional, there's an option for exclusive group. So if you wanted to give the customer the option between this option or the other one, you can set it as a group. And you basically just highlight the 2 items like I did, right-click and choose Edit Line Attributes, set it as is optional, and then set the group. And then the group can be whatever you want. So you would just type in here what you want to call it. So I'm just going to call this group. And then I can hit OK. And actually, we'll do is selected, and then I'll hit OK. And the reason you would do this is if you're giving, again, your customer the option between one of 2 options. So if you're saying, here's option A and here's option B, you can make your selection this way. And this will be very useful if you're using QuoteValet, which I'm going to show you here in just a moment, that you can actually give the customer the choice to choose it. So not only does it show up on the PDF document as an optional item that they've selected, but they can actually change it if they're using QuoteValet. And then this is just telling us that you can only have one of the mutually exclusive options selected. So a couple other things I wanted to run through first before we save our document in QuoteWorks. On this edit menu, if you right-click, you'll see there's quite a few other options. You're going to have your basic options for moving things around the document. So you have your cut, copy, and paste. We do support drag and drop. So if you wanted to drag items between different sections in the document, you can do that. Or you can use cut, copy, and paste to move the items as well. You also see there's an option for, if we scroll down a little bit, we can insert a blank line. A blank line is going to be just a blank line in QuoteWorks. It's going to have a quantity set to 1, a description set to blank, and then no pricing or cost set either. So if you need to add something on the fly, again, you can right-click, scroll down a little bit, excuse me, and you'll see there's an option for inserting a blank line. You can also use the keyboard shortcut on the Document Items tab of Control-I. Let's see here. I think we may have lost our connection. There we go. So right-clicking will give you a few other options as well. You can insert a comment line. Comment line will be very similar to a blank line, except that it won't have a quantity associated with it and it won't have any pricing associated with it. So it's just going to be just text or just a description. There's a keyboard shortcut for that as well. So if you do Control-M, you can do Insert Comment, and that'll do it as well, so you don't have to right-click and do it. Then you'll see there's the Insert Heading that obviously we touched on. We can also do a Add Subtotal. So if you wanted to subtotal out your different sections in the document, you can add a subtotal instead. So if you want to say, okay, here's your products total, here's your services total, here's your optional item subtotal, you can run subtotals in each of those different sections in the document. And to do that, very simple. You simply need to go to your QuoteWerks document and decide where you want this subtotal line to be. So if I want it to run right underneath my last product item, simply right-click on my last product item. So I have two product items, so I'm going to right-click on the second item. I'm going to right-click, and then I'm just going to scroll down to Add Subtotal. And once I select Add Subtotal, it'll add that subtotal to my document. And then you can see it just adds it as another line item. It even calls it subtotal line for you. And it'll subtotal out the extended price of your particular items. In that subtotal line, you can change the description. So if you want to call it products or product subtotal or products total or whatever you want to do in there, you can easily type in whatever you want to call it in there. So I'm going to change this one to products total. So you can see there, we went ahead and adjusted it and call it products total now. And you can run multiple subtotal lines, like I said, so if you wanted to run one under the services or the optional items, you can do that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this since we don't need this in our document, but just wanted to show that that option is available. So last couple things I want to show, the add % discount and add % charge options. So if you wanted to show your customer that you're giving them like a 15% discount on the document as its own line item, you can simply right-click on the last item where you want to run that discount and choose Add % discount. If you want to do it for multiple items, so if you want to say, okay, I'm going to give the customer a 10% discount on all their products, not just this particular item, you would want to run a subtotal first. So you would select that item, click Add Subtotal, and then after you add that subtotal line, you'll right-click again on that subtotal line and choose Add % discount. So we can do either Add % discount or Add % charge. We can do both in the document. And that'll show the line item on the document with a negative value so the customer can see how much they're saving. If you just want to give your customer a $200 discount, you can simply add a blank line to the document and put in the unit price, negative $200, and that would deduct $200 from the quote. So if you do need to put any type of negative values in your items or in the QuoteWerks document, you're able to easily do that. The last thing I want to show you before we save our work is grouping these items together. So if you wanted to sell these items as like a package deal, so for instance, our two products here, maybe we don't want to send these as individual items to the customer, want them to purchase them as like a package deal because we want them to know that that's a purchase of power cable. We can highlight our two items, and again, all I'm going to do to highlight is hold Control on my keyboard and select my two items, and then I'm going to right-click and scroll down to where it says Convert to Group. You can also use the keyboard shortcut of Control-G, and that will let you convert those items to a group as well. So you'll see here down at the bottom, we select Convert to Group, and then I'm going to go ahead and select that. And then it's going to prompt me to convert the selected items to the group, and I can hit OK. And when you do that, you'll see it's going to highlight your items that you've converted to a group in yellow, so that you know that those items have been successfully converted to a group. You also see that the pricing is grayed out. So if you look under the unit price, it's actually been grayed out. So anytime you see grayed out pricing, that means it's not shown to the customer. So anytime you have grayed out pricing, it means the customer is not going to see pricing. Still see the individual items, they're not going to see pricing. So anytime you convert items to a group, by default, we're going to hide the pricing. You can obviously go in there and change that. If you right-click on those line items and select Edit Line Attributes, you can change those items so that you can actually see the line attributes of those items and change the pricing so it does print. You'll see there's a header line here. We can adjust this description so you can put in whatever you want to call it. So for instance, if we want to call it our Trip Light package, we can type that in there. And then that will be essentially the header line for this particular group. So the customer will see, oh, it's a Trip Light package. We're ordering 3 of these and 3 of these, and here's the total. If you didn't want to show the customer the individual line items, so that's where we talked about hiding those attributes again. You highlight your 2 items, right-click, and go back to Edit Line Attributes. And then you'll simply adjust the attribute that says Print Line. I'll let it catch up here. So you've selected your 2 items. You right-clicked, selected Edit Line Attributes, and then you can go to Print Line, and you can change it to No. So it won't show up on the document for the customer, so all they'll see is the line item that says Trip Light package. They're not going to see the 2 items that have, the one that says Trip Light switch 19 outlets or Trip Light power interconnect table. They wouldn't actually see those items anymore. They're just going to see the first one. If you want them to see it, then you can say Print Line Yes, and then they will see the individual items. If you want to revert your items back to individual items, maybe you added them as a bundle, but there's a couple items that the customer doesn't need, so you're going to go ahead and remove them, and you don't want to sell them as a group anymore. You can simply delete the group line, so the group header line. And to delete it from the document, or any items from the document rather, you simply highlight the item, and then you can either right-click or hit delete on your keyboard, and then it'll just prompt you, do you want to delete this line item, just to make sure, and you can hit yes. If you delete something or make a change that you don't want to do, you can always undo it. You can hit Control-Z on your keyboard, and that will undo, or there's an undo button over here all the way to the right of the totals for all items boxes. You'll see there's a couple of different icons, but there's one all the way to the right that will let you undo a line item change. So if you change something that you didn't mean to, or deleted something you weren't supposed to, you can quickly make that adjustment. Just hit Control-Z. Control-Z is the easiest, but there's an icon for it as well. So now that we've made all our changes to our document, we're ready to save our work. So we're going to go ahead and up at the top, click on our Save icon. And then this is going to prompt us to save our document in QuoteWerks. So we need to save everything that we've done so far. So the document name is going to be assigned automatically. Typically, by default, it's going to be the company that we're selling to and today's date. That's just the default settings we've set in QuoteWerks that we use for our naming convention. You can adjust that however if you'd like to. So if you wanted to set different macros or something like that, those options can be changed. The document number will be assigned automatically. We typically recommend just using the next available document number, not to manually change this. You probably shouldn't be manually changing it unless you guys are manually changing every document. Status of the document will be set as open. Again, this is a default that we're using. Yours may say something different, but they can be adjusted under the Tools Options menu, or if you want to change the default status of your documents when you're saving it, you can adjust those. And then project number will be assigned automatically as well. However, you can change the project number if you need to. So if you're creating quotes or proposals for a project, so it has maybe different phases or things like that, you can you can set a project number for that item manually by clicking on the ellipsis button right next to the project number. And then this will let you select, instead of auto-assigning the next available project number, you can click on the Enter Project Number manually. And then you can either start typing in there. So if you know the project number, you can just type it in. Or if it's something that's in the drop-down, you can click on the drop-down and select the project number that you want to use. So, and all that enables you to do is basically, if you set multiple quotes or proposals with the same project number, when you can then run like a search or report on that project number and see which quotes are still open from it, which ones have closed, how much revenue is brought in, how much revenue is forecasted to bring in, that kind of information. If you're only creating the quote for the one-time use for that one customer, then you'll just use the next available, so you won't have to worry about changing it. It's really only going to be used if you're doing, like I said, quote or proposal that has multiple phases for a specific project. Again, if you are using a CRM or PSA, down here there'll be a few extra checkboxes where you can choose to create the opportunity or schedule a follow-up call. And again, you'll see those options there. And it'll just have a little checkbox and you can choose which ones you want to do. So go ahead and hit OK. So this is going to save our document in QuoteWerks. Up at the top, you'll see this is our new document name. So we have our document name, and then this is our document number. So the first 3 letters of the document name can be changed. So if you want to set it as, the first 3 letters, your company name, your location, your username, whatever you want to do, you can change those. That is a installation setting, so that is something that everyone's going to use. So you do want to choose something that's going to basically represent the company. The letter Q is what we call the document designator. This tells you what type of document it is in QuoteWerks. So is it a quote, is it an order, is it an invoice? If it's a quote, it'll be a Q. If it's an order, it'll be an O. If it's an invoice, it'll be an I. So it makes it very easy when you are looking for a specific document in QuoteWerks to look at the document number and know what type of document it is. Or if a customer reads off a document number to you, you can quickly tell what document, what type of document it is. This is the entire document number. So if you do look for a QuoteWerks document number, you're not going to search by Q1152 or 1152. You need to type in FLAQ1152 to find it. So if I go to Open, and then I click on my search shortcut up at the top left, and then my document number, I type in, if I just typed in 1152, and hit Find, it's not going to find this particular item because that's not the full document number. So the full document number is going to be the FLAQ1152. So you do need to remember that and know that that's the entire document number. So I need to type in FLAQ1152, and then if I hit Find, then it'll locate that particular item, or that particular document, rather. So now that I've saved my document in QuoteWerks and also updated anything in my CRM that needs to be updated, now I can deliver this document to the customer. So when you're ready to deliver it, you're going to click on the Deliver icon. And this brings up the Print, Share, Publish, and Deliver document window. So this is, again, where we're going to select the output that the customer is going to receive from me. Again, like I said, you're going to have multiple options. You're also going to have the option to choose what the customer is going to receive from you. So you're going to be able to select, okay, is a customer looking for a simple one-page quote? Are you sending them a multiple-page proposal? Is it something in between? You're going to be able to make all those selections based here. If you're using our layout designer, you'll simply select your layout. And then if you have a cover page you want to include, any cover pages that have been set up for you or that you're using will be available here. You'll see there's a drop-down where you can select on the drop-down, you can select the cover page that you want to use there. And then if you have any literature files, you can select those as well. So if I click on our literature tab, you'll see this one has about 3 different literature files that are available. The literature files are going to be useful if you have like terms and conditions, service contracts, warranty information. Anything that you send out on a regular basis can be a literature file. If they're static, whereas like they're in PDF, we can support PDF in here. If they change or if they're somewhat dynamic where you have stuff that you want to pull in from the QuoteWerks document, you can actually save them as an RTF file. So they're probably in a Word doc, so you can do a file, save as RTF, and then you can actually put them in put QuoteWerks macros in them, so we can populate information from that literature file, such as like dates and pricing information and company names and contact names and things like that, so you don't have to do any of that information manually. The Spec Sheets tab will display any spec sheets that are associated with items on the document. So this will basically only work if you have imported or set up items in a QuoteWerks native database. You can also set up items to have spec sheets, so if they have more technical information. When you add an item to the document that has a spec sheet associated with it, the spec sheet will show up on this tab. It'll look very similar to the last tab on the literature tab, where it'll just have the document name and then a little checkbox next to it. And then the Links tab, again, what we talked about earlier is if you manually attached a document to this particular QuoteWerks document, it'll show up here, and it'll have a little checkbox, and you can choose whether or not you'd like to include this document to be sent to the customer. Anytime you make a selection, you'll see here there's a little asterisk next to the tab so that you know that you've made a selection on that particular tab. So it makes it very easy to look at your tabs and see if if you're always supposed to have a cover page and literature information and you see there's no selection, then you need to go there and make the change. So the first way we can deliver this document to the customer is via email. So I'm going to go ahead and select Preview because we want to see what the document's going to look like before we deliver it to the customer. And I just need to pull this over on my other screen. So this is what the document would look like to the customer. It's going to give us a representation of what the customer would actually see. So they can see who it was quoted to, prepared by. You can even include a picture of yourself if you'd like, and put in your own company logo. These are all completely customizable, so you can change colors, fonts, formats. You can choose what's printing, what's not printing, all that information. And then we'll see here we have our heading lines, our products, our services, and then we even have some of our optional items, and then a summary down at the bottom. Again, all this is customizable, so you can really make this look however you'd like. You can see here this is information that was pulled from Edelweiss, so it's including some additional marketing information. So kind of like a longer summary about these particular items. So after you've looked everything over and you're ready to deliver it to your customer, you can click on Email in the top left. And then this is going to prompt me to ask for a approval. So we do support approvals in QuoteWerks. So if you have like managers who need to approve your documents before they go out based on the dollar amount of the document or a specific margin, you can set that up. I'm going to go ahead and override it because we don't need to show that, but you do have the option to set up document approvals in QuoteWerks if you need that capability. So this will bring up my email window. The email window is customizable, so you can change the different templates. You can also see, if you look at the top right, there's a template option where you can have different templates that you select for specific customers or just for specific things you're selling. So if you wanted to customize different email templates so everyone's using the same verbiage that's going out to all the customers, you can set default templates in QuoteWerks. And then you'll see there under the attachment, you'll see there's my PDF document. So that's what's actually going to be sent to the customer. And then I can click Send, and it'll send out just like this. Again, this is all customizable, so you can change the defaults here and change your signature and all that information. If you are using Outlook, we can send the email via Outlook, so that'll be logged in your Sent folder in Outlook. When you hit Send, obviously that emails the document in to the customer. This also will attach the PDF version of the document to the CRM or PSA that you're working with. So if you integrate with any of the ones that we support, we'll actually take that PDF document and attach it to the opportunity in the CRM or PSA. Very useful if you have someone who needs access to the document, but they don't have access to QuoteWerks. They can actually see what was sent to the customer. So that happens when you physically email the document to the customer. We'll attach that PDF. So that's the first way that you can deliver the document to your customer, is by emailing. The second option is going to be if you wanted to save it out as a PDF. Either you're going to fax it or you're going to physically hand it to them. You can see down at the bottom there's a Save as PDF button. So you can click on that, and that will let you save a PDF version of the document essentially wherever you need to. You don't need to worry about saving it in a QuoteWerks folder or anything like that. You can if you want to, but we actually will copy. Since we store everything in the database, we'll always have a copy of the QuoteWerks document. So this is just the PDF. This isn't saving the actual QuoteWerks document and moving it out of the installation. It's just going to be the output that the customer receives. So you can choose where you want to save that as a PDF. You could even link it on the Links tab if you wanted to, if you're doing it kind of like faxing it, or like I said, if you're manually going to physically hand it to them. The other option is going to be if you're sending via QuoteValet. So if I want to deliver this quote via QuoteValet, I'm going to do everything the exact same way I just did. There's not going to be any difference. I'm going to run through. I'm going to select my contact. I'm going to create my items. I'm going to save it. You're going to do everything the exact same way. The only difference is when you're using QuoteValet, instead of choosing email after you preview it, you're going to choose Upload to QuoteValet. And again, if you need approval, it'll prompt you for approval at that time. So when you upload it to QuoteValet, it's going to bring you to the Upload to QuoteValet screen. There's going to be basically 4 different steps. So the first one is you can view the PDF file. So if you didn't preview it and you want to view the PDF before you attach it here, you can view the PDF, because we are going to include the PDF version of the document in QuoteValet to the customer so they can actually view it. Second option is going to be to upload it. So this is where you're going to select the template that the customer is going to receive from you. Typically, you're probably just going to use the customer-facing or the default one, but you can set up different settings if you'd like. So I'm going to go ahead and click Upload. And this is going to upload our document to QuoteValet. And then typically you would preview it before sending it to the customer because you want to see what the customer is going to receive, and then you would click on Send Email. So you would do Step 3, Preview, and then Step 4, Send Email. But since we're doing a demo, I'm going to go ahead and show you the customer side. So we're going to skip the preview, and we're going to go right to Send Email. And then this is going to bring up our email window. So the email window is going to, by default, again, the company that we're sending to is going to be who we select on Sold to, Ship to. You'll see that there's no attachments. If you look under the attachments option, there's no attachment there. All we have in our document is this link that we've set up here in our email window. So again, these email templates can be customized. So if you want to adjust the template verbiage here, you're able to do that. So I'm going to click on this customer's link so we can see what the customer received, and we're going to basically pretend that we're the customer now. So I'm going to click on the customer's link, and it's going to open up this particular quote in my web browser. So it's actually going to open up my web browser and open this quote for me. Now, when the customer clicks on that link in the email, this is actually going to send an email to you, to the sales rep, notifying you that your quote was viewed for the first time. So you're actually going to be able to see that the customer viewed the document for the first time. And all this is, again, it's going to be customizable, so you can drop in your own logo. Your company information will pull from QuoteWerks. You can put in your own banner, and then who is prepared for, prepared by, and company picture, this stuff's point from QuoteWerks. This is all done in HTML, so if you want to make adjustments, you can change the format. Just needs to be done in HTML, obviously. You'll see there's a PDF thumbnail of our document. So we do include the PDF document to the customer. So if it does have contracts or warranties or anything that they need to read over, they can get that information simply by clicking on the thumbnail. And that'll open up the PDF in their web browser so that they can either print it off or just read it online, whatever they need to do with it, or if they just need a hard copy for accounting purposes, they're able to see this document here so that they can print this off, or just if they need it, they have it. Then if we scroll down, you'll see this is the line item information from QuoteWerks. So this is where QuoteValet is extremely useful and has some cool features, is that the document becomes truly dynamic for the customer. So the customer can actually choose, okay, which options do they want. You can even set it up where they can adjust quantity. I don't have mine set up that way, but we actually have a video that I'll walk you through changing that so that you can set it where the customer can adjust quantity. So the customer can actually go through and make the selections they want without having to contact you, and you update the quote with any changes. So the first one you can see under Services, it has the radio button. So if you remember back when we changed the optional items, we selected making them exclusive, and this is why, so that in QuoteValet you can actually select which items you want. So if you want this item, you can select it. And if you don't want the optional items, so under the optional items heading, I can uncheck that box, and then I can simply click Update, and it'll update our pricing. So right now it's at, our subtotal is $3126.09, and then if I click Update after my changes and after my selections, it's going to jump to $35.54. So this makes it, again, like I said, very easy for the customer to go through and choose what they want or which options. You could do multiple options, so if you wanted to give the customer like a good, better, best kind of thing, they can go through and they can select which of the 3 options or 5 options or however many options you want to give them. So this makes it very easy for the customer to get exactly what they need without you having to constantly update the document with whatever changes they need. So if we scroll down a little farther, you'll see there's the ready to accept portion. This is basically when the customer is ready to order or place their order. They're going to scroll down here. The first one is going to be a little checkbox that says they agree to the terms and conditions. So right there, there's a little checkbox. So they're actually ready to move forward. They can do that. The IP address will show the IP address of the end user, so you can actually see who's viewing it. Ours is zeroed out just for demo purposes, but in a working live version of QuoteValet, you'd actually be able to see the customer's IP address. and then they can put in a PO number. They don't have to. It's optional. Comments, they can put any comments in there. The email address will pull from the quote. So whatever email address you used on that sold to ship to, that's the email address we're going to default here. They can change it so they can type in there. So, you know, it's the accountant that's accepting it and making payment, then they can put their information in there. And then printed name and signature, basically the printed name will be their name, and then signature, typically most companies just do the same thing. They just use the printed name and signature, but they can put in something else. And you can see there's a few different examples down at the bottom here. And then once they're ready to accept, they can click accept, and that will send an email to the sales rep that the document has been accepted. Now, if they have any questions, they can actually come here and post their question. And they can simply type in whatever their question or their comment is into that box. And then once they've posted that comment, they can hit submit. And when you hit submit, this will actually send an email to the sales rep notifying you that your customer posted a comment. And then it also posts it on QuoteValet. So you can actually see down at the bottom, there's a new comment posted on QuoteValet. So it starts kind of like a thread of comments on the document, so you can actually see the conversation here. So if your customer has a comment, instead of them having to send you an email, they can do that, but send you an email automatically. As a sales rep, you can reply directly to that email, and it'll go to the customer, or there's an option to log in as the sales rep and reply directly to this question. Since I don't have email set up on this machine, there's another way you can get there, and that's via QuoteWerks. So if we go back into QuoteWerks, and if we go back to our main QuoteWerks screen, you'll see now there's a new tab available. So all the way to the right, there's a QuoteValet tab that's now available. So this, because this document's now been uploaded to QuoteValet, I can now see the activity for this QuoteValet document. And you can see here, when you click on that tab, it'll actually load up the activity for you on the right-hand side. And you can actually scroll through and see the activity. So you can see that it was created and uploaded for this customer by this sales rep. And then you can see the customer viewed it for the first time. You can see the customer viewed the PDF attachment. You can see that they changed an option, and then they posted a comment is the very last thing that happened with this particular document at this point. So as the sales rep, if you wanted to reply, you can see there's a View Sales Rep Facing Page option. And when you click on that, that'll actually bring you to the QuoteValet Sales Rep Facing Page side, so you can respond to that customer's comment. So click on that. And that'll bring you to the login page where the customer can actually, where you're going to put in your information. The account number will already be set for you, and then the user and the password are just your QuoteWerks username and password. So you're just going to use the exact same username and password here. So I'm just type in my password for QuoteWerks, and then I hit login, and then it's going to log me into QuoteValet. And then you can see here it's going to bring us to the sales rep facing mode page, and you can see up at the top left it even says that, and then in the background it even says internal, so that you know that you're on the sales rep side. And then you can simply scroll down to the bottom, and you can respond to your customer's comment there. And then when you post your response on QuoteValet, this will send an email to the customer with your response. It'll also post your message on QuoteValet. So if I hit submit, you can see there it'll have your response set already, and then that sent an email to the customer. It'll also CC the sales rep on your response so that you also have a copy of that email information as well. So the customer's happy, they're ready to move forward, so we can go back to the customer's quote. We'll pretend we're the customer again. So we're going to click on our checkbox for agreeing to the terms and conditions. So we're going back to this acceptance portion, and then we're going to click on our checkbox. So we're going to agree to the terms and conditions of this document. And then we can put in a PO number if we want to. We don't have to. So you can type in a PO number if you'd like. Again, like I said, you don't have to. If you have any comments that you want to put in there, you can put those in there as well. And then again, we're going to go through our signature, and we're going to sign off on the document. So we'll go through and we'll fill out all the required information in this document here. And then once we're ready to accept it, we can click on the Click to Accept button. Instead of the signature line, instead of the customer like typing in the signature, if you think they'd be more comfortable drawing their signature with either their mouse or if they're, if they're already always on their phone or on their tablet, and that's how they're going to accept this document, you can create a template that has basically a signature box where they would draw their signature instead. So if you have someone that you think would be more comfortable with that, you can have a template specifically for that as well. So go ahead and we're going to accept our document. So we'll just click to accept. This will show you that it'll say please wait, and then once the document has been accepted, it's going to bring you to the acceptance screen. So it'll bring you to the screen that says thank you for accepting the quote, and it'll have all the information from that document, and then that sends an email to the sales rep notifying the rep that the customer has accepted the document. So you know the document has been accepted by the customer now. There is a Pay Now button available on mine because I have payment set up. If you accept credit cards or PayPal, this Pay Now button is available. If you don't, that's fine. You'll still get the acceptance email, and then you can move forward with the order from there. So the Pay Now, this is obviously if you're accepting payments electronically, you can click on Pay Now, and this will let you make the payment. Again, this is going to support credit card. There's about 80 different gateways we support, as well as PayPal. So credit card or PayPal for electronic payment. The amount will be set by the deposit on the document item screen. So if you go back into QuoteWorks on the document item screen, on the bottom left-hand corner of that document item screen, you can set the deposit. I have mine set for the full amount, so it's going to show the entire document total that the customer is going to make payment on. So once your customer has accepted the quote, you need to convert the quote to an order. Whether you're using QuoteValet or not, it's important that you convert the quote to an order in QuoteWorks because that's how we close the quote in QuoteWorks. So to convert the quote to an order, if you're using QuoteValet, it'll actually prompt you automatically next time you open the quote or view the changes on the QuoteValet tab to convert this quote to an order. If you're not using QuoteValet, that's fine. It's very easy to convert a quote to an order. You're simply going to go under the File menu, and then there's an option for Convert to Order. So again, if you're using QuoteValet, it'll prompt you automatically. If you're not using QuoteValet, simply go under File, Convert to Order. You can also use Convert to Invoice too. Most everyone uses Convert to Order, but if you're using Convert to Invoice, it's going to do essentially the same thing. What we're doing here is we're basically just closing this quote in QuoteWorks because if you're running any kind of reporting or doing any kind of searching for documents in QuoteWorks, this will mark your quote as closed or won so that it doesn't show up in any reports or any searches when you're looking for just the open quotes. So do Convert to Order, and then this will bring this Convert to Order window open. And then you can see here the first option is going to say Doc Status for New Order, and we set as Open. And Doc Status for Quote is going to be set to Closed. And then there's going to be a few other options. If you have any revisions, the revisions will actually be listed here, and there'll be checkboxes next to them so that you can delete them if you want. So if you created 6 different documents for the customer and they decided to go with the 5th one, and that's the one you convert to an order, all the other revisions will be listed here, and there'll be checkboxes next to them, and you can check it off and have QuoteWorks delete them so that you're not, you don't have any misinformation about your forecast or anything for that particular customer. You'll see that it's just going to be this document, and we'll convert it to the order. When you convert the document to an order, there will also be information about updating your opportunity in CRM. And so if you're using CRM or PSA, it will also update your document as or update your opportunity as won or closed in your CRM. So typically, once you convert it to an order, another window will pop up, and it'll actually say, do you want to update this CRM as closed or won, whatever terminology that they're using. If you go back to QuoteValet, you'll see that we can see the customers accepted and viewed the payment request. So if they had made payment, the payment would actually be listed here as well. So that's pretty much it from start to finish. One of the last things I want to show you would be QuoteValet Web. QuoteValet Web is going to give you some more reporting capabilities with QuoteValet. So this is going to be specific if you are using QuoteValet, that you are able to kind of get just some basic information from any QuoteValet documents. So to get to QuoteValet Web, if you have QuoteValet or if you're trialing QuoteValet, it's simply QuoteValet.com/web. That's the URL you use. And you'll just log in again using your QuoteWerks credentials. And then you're going to have a few different options. First one I'm going to show you is going to be under the dashboard. So you'll see there's quite a few different options here under the dashboard. We have our inbox, our peer reviews, approvals, executive summary, my summary status board, and document explorer. Some of these may not be visible to you. Specifically, the executive summary and status board are not shown to just like sales reps. This would usually be something that management is going to view because you can view everyone's documents and see how much the orders are and stuff like that. By default, no one can actually view this. Even if you have master rights, you won't see the executive summary or the status board. So you'll actually have to go into the user rights in QuoteWorks for your user. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom of the user rights, you'll see all the QuoteValet user rights, and you'll need to set those. So under this dashboard, we'll go under the inbox first. It's going to be very familiar to where we just were with QuoteWorks. Let's see. We're going to let me just log back in here. So when you click on the inbox, it's going to show you a list of all your recent QuoteWorks documents. Basically, from it's chronological, so they're going to be the newest first to the oldest. And you can see here, you can filter by the sales reps, you can refresh. And then there's a few different options. You can view the customer-facing page. So if you want to see what the customer is viewing, you can quickly see that. If you click on the sales rep-facing page, this will let you see the sales rep side. So if you need to respond to a customer's comment, you can do that. You can also send a note. So if you need to send some kind of note to yourself or to someone else, you can do that. And then if you want to view the activity history, we can do that as well. So if you click on the activity history, that will actually show you the activity history for that document so far. Again, this is also available in QuoteWorks, but very useful if you're out of the office and you want to kind of check on the statuses of your documents. You can go to your inbox and then see all this information here. It is mobile friendly, so you can open it on like your phone or tablet or something like that. Peer reviews. This is going to show any peer reviews that are pending. So if you need to view any information about any document that's been submitted for peer review, you can check that. So you can see there's a link for the view peer review page, the activity history, and send notes. Very similar to the last one, but this is just for documents that have been, that peer reviews have been requested for. And then approvals. It's going to look very similar to the peer reviews. However, this is going to, again, only be available for management because they're the only ones that are typically going to be for ready for approvals, but this will also show you any documents that you've submitted for approval where you can actually see if it's been approved. You can check the activity history, you can send a note, you can even view the approval page. So if you want to see if it's been approved or if the management has approved it, they can access the approval page from here. And then the executive summary, this is going to give you all the information about either a specific rep or specific documents. You can basically set those filters. So you can actually say, okay, show me all of sales reps, all quotes that have been sent, accepted, and how many have been paid, which ones are the top quotes, the top orders, how many times the customer viewed them, customer comments, sales rep comments, and then you can even do a comparative analysis. So if you'll look here at the bottom, see these are going to be all the quotes sent. You can also filter by the quotes accepted. So this will only show you quotes that have been accepted. And it could be accepted and paid or just accepted. So you can see those documents here. You can also filter by the customer views or the customer comments or the sales rep comments. And then the last one is going to be the comparative analysis. So if you click on the comparative analysis, I'm just going to wait for you guys to catch up here. Click on the comparative analysis. This will actually show you in a little more streamlined format between, you can do sort by amount of orders or amount of quotes. And I'm the only rep here, but if you had multiple reps, they would actually show up here, and you could see how many quotes that were created, what was the dollar value, how many were those converted to orders, what the order value is. So that's something that also won't be available by default. It's only going to be shown to, you'll have to change the access rights in QuoteWorks to view that type of information in QuoteValet. My summary, this is also sort of in QuoteWerks as well, where you can quickly see your documents. So this will show you any quotes that you've sent. This one's set for today, but you could do like this week or this month or whatever. Same thing with quotes sent, quotes accepted, paid, customer views, customer comments, sales rep comments. Again, it's going to be very similar to the last one we were just on, but instead of being able to view everyone's, it's only going to be specific to that sales rep. The dollar amount on the document, so if you look under where it says quote sent in the top left, the dollar amount is shown. If you don't have security rights to see the dollar amount, then it won't be shown. You can just see the number of quotes that were sent and the number that were accepted, the number paid, that kind of information. Status board. This was designed primarily to use it as like a kind of like a sales tool for the sales rep, so they can see which documents have been accepted, which ones have made payments, if customers made a comment, and basically shown to the entire sales team. Like for instance, in our office, we actually have a monitor that we use, and we display this information so that if someone's out of the office, we can follow up on their quotes, so you don't have to worry about that information not showing up or not being followed up with. And you can see you have the different users here and the different inbox information here as well. And you can see all the different documents here. And then all these have different settings. So like the little checkbox means it's been accepted. The PDF icon means that they viewed the PDF. It means they posted a comment or they changed an option. So all that information is available here, so that if you wanted to show like all your reps kind of what's going on with the documents and which ones need to be followed up on, they can see that without having to constantly check QuoteValet or their email or anything like that. And then Document Explorer. This is just going to let you search for specific documents, kind of set like basic filters. So if you want to search by the document type, so like quote order and invoice, the period, today, yesterday, this week, and then search by specific sales rep, so you can kind of see what users have done on specific dates. There's also a find option. So if you're looking for a very specific document number or a document name or one that was sent to a specific company, you can actually search for that specific document here. And then admin, this will just be your usage monitor, where you can actually see what users have done, so you can see what they've clicked on. So you can see basically which ones are using it, which ones aren't, if you need that information. Again, that's something that's only going to be available to like master rights users. So that is pretty much it from start to finish. I think we have a few other questions to go through. Let's see here. Let's go back to QuoteWerks, and then see if we have any questions to go over. One moment. Okay, so that's it. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to give us a call or shoot us an email. I'll be happy to answer anything else that you can answer that we didn't go over, or if you have questions about something that we did go over. So we'll be posted on the website at some point, so if you want to share it with anyone, that'll be available to you as well. So thank you guys for coming, and again, if you have any questions, just let us know.